Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome, everybody to Loop, the first ever 24-hour global community summit. I'm so excited to see so many people here already. To kick things off for the very first ever time we're doing an event like this, make sure you tell us in the chat where you're tuning in from. This is probably the most global event CMX has ever been a part of. And so I would love to hear from which corners of the world you're joining. We've been working with some incredible organizations to get this event on the go. Led by Community is a UK-based organization supporting the professionals who build and manage communities. They run events, mentorship, and peer learning to help community builders grow their careers and impact, spanning tech, education, social impact, and more. Their mission, of course, is simple: it's to elevate the role of community builders worldwide. The Community Collective is a global community for community builders, and their vision is to lead a global movement that establishes community building as the most impactful business strategy. They started as a 17-person meetup in Melbourne during the pandemic in 2021, and then they went viral. And today they have almost 13,000 people in their community and audience, with 700 plus communities across 18 countries. They have both been an absolute pleasure to work with. Paz from the Community Collective and Francisco from Led by Community. It has been so much fun to collaborate with these two organizations. And of course, CMX, the leading platform for community professionals. We offer education, research, and connection to help you and your teams thrive. We publish the annual Community Industry Report. We host the CMX Summit, and we, of course, recognize excellence through the CMX Community Industry Awards. By collaborating with organizations and platforms and leaders across the ecosystem and industry, CMX is driving the growth, impact, and recognition of community as a critical business function. My goodness, I'm looking in the chat, and it really, from like all corners of the world, we're coming in here. This is so fantastic. Megan, I see you. Alberta, Canada, represent. Neighbors. And Brazil, Seattle, London, Egypt. Goodness, welcome everybody. We could not put this event on without our sponsors. Bevy is a unified community engagement platform built human first with helpful AI agents to empower amazing community leaders to transform connections and fill the world with belonging. Gainsight, of course, the leading insights-driven post-sales solution provider, helping businesses drive revenue growth by unifying the post-sales community customer journey. And Discourse, an open source community platform that gives organizations a secure and flexible home to connect with customers, employees, and members. Without these three organizations, this event just wouldn't have happened. And we were able to work with 4 incredible community partners who helped us talk about Loop, basically to all the corners of the globe. These 4 groups shared the Loop mission with their audiences and shared what we're doing here. So thank you to Quip, to Australia Community Managers, to Community Consultants Collective, and the community. So before we get into it, I will share that we are using the Bevy virtual conference platform to host Loop. When we were dreaming this event up, I knew that because we would host on Bevy, a 24-hour event, not just possible, easy and seamless to set up. So thank you for this platform. I wanted to give you all a quick tour. On the very right-hand side of your screen, you're going to see 4 tabs. The first one is Agenda. When you click that, you will see all of our sessions listed in your time zone. So you don't have to do any conversions. Everything is listed in your time zone. You'll also see Networking. That is where you can find multiple tables. You can enter them at any time, and you can meet other loopers. That's what we're calling you. Below Networking, you can see the booths. That's where you can score sweet discounts from our sponsors and partners, and links at the bottom where you can learn more about our founding organizations. And yes, before you ask, we are recording all of the sessions and we will be distributing them as soon as they're ready to view. So that's me. I'm Beth McIntyre, Director of Community at Bevy, and I lead the CMX community. And I want to share a few programs we're running at CMX that might tickle your fancy, and then I'm going to dive into some exciting things. So first, I want to mention the CMX Connect program, run by an incredible team of volunteers and our amazing community manager, Fahim. The CMX Connect program is in 52 cities around the world. So this is your chance to join people, join a chapter or start a chapter, and bring local CMXers together in your community. We also have the CMX job board, which is constantly being updated with industry roles of all levels, experiences, and locations. I really hope this is where you find your next job. And for the hiring managers out there, you can post on our job board, and I hope this is where you'll find your next team member. So every year, we do run this report. Last year was the first year that I got to run the whole project. And it turns out I'm a big nerd when it comes to analyzing community trends data. I was so excited to work on this when our survey closed, and I was able to dive into this data again. So we heard from almost 600 professionals around the world this year. What we found is both sobering and inspiring. Community teams are leaner than ever. Budgets are tight, but belief in the power of this work and this industry remains incredibly strong. So I want to start with just how teams are being structured today. Nearly 1 in 5 respondents, which is 17%, told us they didn't have anyone working full-time on community. Woo, that makes me sad. That's the highest number we've ever seen in this research. You can see at the bottom there, we have in 2021, it was 4% said they didn't have anyone working full-time. That's a huge impact. That's a huge increase. The most common team size remains 2 to 5 people, and that tells us the community is still largely being run by very, very small teams. And it's not the work that itself that's shrinking. Community is actually showing up in more departments than ever. It's just that the scope is expanding. So that's a real tension we are all, I'm sure, feeling in 2025. So when we layer budgets on top of this picture, this was the first year that we actually asked about budgets. In the past, we've asked questions about salary, and last year we decided that we didn't have enough information to truly report on salary in like a really fair and equal way, just with all of the different levels, the different years of experience, the different locations, people working in person versus remote. We just weren't getting a full picture and didn't feel like it was a fair representation of salary. So we switched to budget. And when we asked how community budgets shifted this year, the responses were just split. So a third saw increases, about a third saw decreases, and about a third stayed flat. So it's a very uneven playing field. For some, leadership is doubling down on community, and for others, resources are shrinking. So teams, when asked what their biggest challenge was with budget, difficulty proving ROI. 37% of our respondents named this as the top barrier. So it's not just about needing more money, it's about making the case for why communities should be funded in the first place. So we see teams stretched thin on people, stretched thin on money, and still being asked to deliver more impact. You're like, Beth, why are you smiling? Because you have to smile so you don't cry. Sorry. So this is the biggest challenge. I didn't change the slide. So as you can see here, the biggest challenge with budget is difficulty proving ROI. Obviously, budget cuts across the organization takes a huge role in this as well. But it's just telling that if you can't prove the value of what you're doing, then you're probably not going to get any money to continue doing it. So how do the most successful community teams break through the crunch that we just looked at? The answer we're seeing again and again and again and again is data. So when we cross-tabbed the data this year, which is something I learned how to do, cross-tabulation, very cool. One insight jumped out. Teams that integrate their community platform with their company CRM are twice as likely to rate their work as extremely successful at driving business goals. So that's a huge difference. And it's not just about having the fanciest tech stack, because plenty of teams have a CRM but don't connect it to community data. The real advantage comes when you can tie member activity directly to customer records, to revenue, and to retention. So suddenly you can say, this isn't just engagement. Look, this is $1 million in influenced pipeline, or 15% higher renewal rates among community members. Those are the numbers we're looking for. That connection transforms the conversation with leadership. And instead of arguing why community matters, you're now showing proof of impact in the very systems that executives already trust. So the good news is more teams are making that leap. This year, 24% told us they can confidently put a dollar value on their community's impact, and that is the highest we've ever recorded. And here's the kicker. Nearly half of those teams reported more than $1 million in business value from their community programs in just the last 12 months. So obviously not everyone is there yet. About half of respondents said they're still in the work in progress phase, but the trend is moving in the right direction. We're seeing a growing number of teams who can say, here's the value, here's the proof, here's why we deserve continued investment. It shows us that the ROI story isn't impossible. It just requires the right data and the right connections and a mindset shift. Talking from engagement in isolation to talking about engagement as a driver of business outcomes. Okay, it's not all struggle. There are wins. One of the clearest bright spots in this year's data is the return of in-person events. Back in 2022, only 29% of communities were hosting them. Not surprising, of course, given the pandemic years. But in 2025, that number is up to 65%, which is more than doubling in just 3 years. What's interesting is that virtual and hybrid events remain strong too. So it's not a matter of replacing one with the other. Communities are just building multi-channel event strategies, using in-person for deeper connections and virtual to maintain global reach, kind of like a 24-hour global virtual conference. So this comeback is really exciting because events remain one of the most tangible ways that communities can deliver value. Of course, they're where relationships form and trust builds. Members feel the culture of a community most strongly. I just got a message today from Pete. I think I saw, Pete, you're in here, that said, wow, I'm missing that like good CMX vibe from CMX Summit that happened in May. So that's the kind of stuff that like magic is what sticks with people from in-person events. So the takeaway here, members want to be together again. And it looks like organizations are making space for that. Another encouraging shift that we saw this year is around frustrations. So for years, the two challenges have always sat at the very top, consistently engaging members and quantifying the value of community. The percentage of community pros saying it's hard to quantify the value of community dropped from 39% down to 31%. So I know that's only an 8% change, but it does suggest two things. So we're getting better at building strong engagement strategies that actually work, and we're making headway in telling the ROI story, like I mentioned earlier. So while the challenges haven't gone away, they're becoming less overwhelming, which is a sign of maturity in our field, and I think a hopeful signal for what's ahead. I also have to mention, there were 7 people who answered this question with, I don't have any frustrations about my community, which of course, I was just tickled pink. That's the dream. And my hope is that CMX and Led by Community and the Community Collective will continue to bring resources and events and support so that more people will answer this way in future surveys. of course, we had to ask about AI. It continues to be one of the most talked about topics in our field. And this year's data shows it is no longer on the horizon. It is here. 81% of community professionals are already using AI, and that's up from 73% last year. At first, most of that use was tactical, things like content generation or copywriting. But this year, we're seeing a clear shift. More teams are using AI for reporting and data analysis and onboarding automation and even strategy recommendations. So, what that tells me is that AI is moving away from being a simple assistant to more of an advisor and supporting community leaders in like higher level decision making, not just task automation. Of course, we all know, I don't have to tell this audience, that it's not replacing the human side of community, because nothing ever will, but it is giving teams the capacity to protect and scale and advocate for the work they're doing. But the interesting question is, how do community pros feel about this? So the overwhelming sentiment is still optimism. 92% told us that they're excited to learn more about how AI will impact their work. 80% believe that AI will have a positive impact on the industry in the next 3 years. But that number did dip 87% last year to 80% now. That's a sign that while excitement is high, people are also becoming a little bit more realistic. I'm going to turn on the Q&A in case anybody has questions about any of this. I'm happy to answer them. So when we dug into the open text responses of this question, we asked why. We saw some important cautions. We saw some concerns about data privacy and security. We saw fears of inauthentic content flooding communities. We saw worries about over-reliance on AI weakening the case for headcount or funding, which I think is probably the one that a lot of us are nervous about. I see a lot of the executive level on LinkedIn and just the conversations that I see. The executive levels are really celebrating when less people are doing more with fewer resources, which is obviously amazing. It feels great to be able to do more with less. But the worry is that this will then turn into losing those resources, losing team members, having layoffs. So I think that that's one of the big cautions that we're seeing here. So while optimism dominates, of course, there is nuance. The community is not starry-eyed about AI anymore. We are curious, we're hopeful, but we are also alert to the risks. And that balance might be exactly what we need. Using AI to take work off of our plates without losing sight of the human connection at the heart of community. So, what do we make of all of this? For me, the takeaway is that the future of community is not about doing everything with less. It's about focusing on what only we can do. It's about connecting our work to the systems that our organizations already understand, talking the language to the people who already know the language, and proving its value with both data and stories. Most of all, of course, it's about protecting the human heart of community, the trust, the belonging, the connection. No part of that an algorithm can replace. And as much as I love ChatGPT, they're a great colleague, they're not going to replace me. The industry is evolving fast. The challenges are real, but the resilience and creativity and care that community professionals bring to this work year after year continue to give me hope. Community matters. It always has, and it always will. And you can take a little picture of that slide. I feel like that should become my new desktop picture. Okay, I do see one question in the chat. What is your opinion about AI first business in community managers world? This is a great question. And I will be completely honest. I go back and forth every single day. Some days I think, wow, this is incredible. This is going to change everything for the better. And then some days I think, uh-oh, they're doing it wrong. um, I think that the what I mentioned about AI never replacing the human heart of community, the like parts that no algorithm can replace, it's true. But what we need to do is we need to truly protect that. So I think it's a balance. Leaning into that AI first, it's using the tools that make sense for you and for your work and your community, to automate things, to make yourself more efficient, to connect your community to the business so that you can then have more time to be the human heart of your community. It's all about the balance. I think the realistic thing that we all need to know is that we are the ones who need to control that, because we will continue to get this AI first business. We will continue to get this information or directives, from the executive teams and from the top down. And we are the ones who will need to kind of control that, to push back, to say, no, this is how it has to be. This is the important thing of this. Mariana, the danger of having AI at the center of community management is certainly that it can lead to mediocrity and fail to reveal the particular intelligence of each community. It's true. As soon as you start asking AI, I mean, we've all done it when you ask ChatGPT a question and then it answers, and you're like, no, that's not at all what I meant, or like, that doesn't make any sense of what I'm asking you to do. And perhaps sometimes I think it's me and I don't know how to do the, great prompt engineering. Um, but then I have to remember, like, no, this is a robot. Like, this doesn't understand nuance. This doesn't understand the like that human connection and tone and, yeah, vibe. Okay. Oh, thank you, Piper. Yes, I see. Okay, wonderful. Um, and a good reminder that we have the EQ that AI lacks. Absolutely. Um, and it is highlighted these days. And I think that when we say an AI first business, um, I look at, obviously I work for Bevy, which I would say is definitely moving towards that AI first, but they're really still striking the balance because Bevy has always been community first. And so community first in culture, community first in priority, AI first in technology. So maybe that's the balance. Feels pretty good from where I'm sitting. Um, so yes, I love ending early. I think I just spoke so quickly because I'm very excited. Before I bring out our next speaker, because I don't want, if folks are joining like right at the half hour mark to see our next speaker, I don't want them to be late because we started early. So I will just quickly go back over a tour of the platform here so you don't ever get lost. On the right-hand side of your screen, next to the chat, you will see the agenda tab. When you click on that, that's going to take you to the list of all of our sessions. All of the sessions are listed in your time zone. So you do not have to convert. You will be able to see exactly what time they're starting in your local time. And then you can click join to come join us. Under the agenda, you will see networking. That is where we have a handful of open tables. Some of them are work-related topics. Some of them are fun topics. You can debate dogs versus cats. And some of them are just open. So you can go in there, feel free to jump in any of the tables and chat with any of your fellow loopers, which is what we're calling you. So fun. And have a conversation with someone on the other side of the world. Under networking is booths. We have a handful of sponsors and partners listed there, all of whom have discounts on offer for you. So you can score some sweet discounts in our booths tab. And at the bottom, links. That's where you can learn a little bit more about our 3 founding organizations, CMX, the Community Collective, and Led by Community. And of course, the question that is on everybody's mind. Yes, this is a painting of zombies behind me. No, I'm just kidding. That's not what is ever on everyone's mind. What is on everyone's mind is this being recorded? Yes, we are recording all of the sessions. Each organization will make the recordings available in their own unique way. So, wow, you're going to have a lot of opportunity to watch the recordings. Jessica, do we need to leave and join next, or will it automatically keep going? You can just stay in this room. Uh, I will be all day. Yes, so you don't have to leave. You can just hang out here and it will just bleed into the next thing. Okay, one more question, and then we'll bring out our next speaker. Thanks, Piper, for organizing the chat here for us. Don't you believe the power of AI for communities is the ability to find needles in haystacks in a way humans were never able to? Remembering about members, connecting them in unique ways so that connections can be genuine, numerous, and effective. 100%. Absolutely. Um, I think that it's when we talk about the sustainability of community as well. And I remember years ago, Elizabeth Kinsey spoke at CMX Summit about her bus plan, which other people call lottery plans. It's if a community manager wins the lottery and they decide to leave work, what will happen to their community? So it's about building sustainable communities. And what this is kind of talking about is like when when I go or when a community professional goes, who picks up that knowledge? How can you possibly transfer all the knowledge? Who's looking for work? Who's an expert in a certain topic? Who has met? Who? Where are they located? Um, like, how could you possibly transfer all of that knowledge to a new person for the team? So I think that what this is saying is that, like, yeah, how do you bring AI to do that part, that connection part, um, so that if someone asks a question, I mean, I might not know the answer to all the questions in the CMX community, but I've been around long enough that I typically know who might know the answer. So how do I download that knowledge of, oh, I should connect you with this person? Um, how do you download that knowledge into AI so that it's just more efficient? Anyway, great conversation, everybody. Feels a bit weird because I feel like I'm kind of talking to myself, but I know you're there and I know you're listening. So thank you for having this conversation with me.